Right, Sunday, 2 PM, Chelsea make the trip to what of recent has become somewhat of an unhappy hunting ground for us in Molineux, where we take on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Chelsea are looking to build off of a midweek win in the Europa Conference League against Servette, and both sides are looking to bounce back from opening day defeats, where they were both beaten by two of the title favourites in this season's Premier League in Arsenal and Manchester City, respectively. So in this video, I am going to talk about Wolves. I'm going to talk about the approach that I feel that Chelsea need to make in this game. As always, I'm going to be giving you lot my starting 11 picks, and I'll even cap it off with a score prediction. But people, before we get into all that, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button right now. Do me a massive favour, smash the like button. It helps me out more than you could imagine. Let's get into the video. Right, I will just briefly touch on the Servette game because there's been a lot of mixed opinion. I personally was just happy to see Chelsea get a win on the board, but I'm also not deluded. I understand that we didn't really play unreal in the game, and maybe if you look at the amount of chances, the amount of shots on target, maybe some would feel that a draw is a fair result, but maybe some would feel like we could have got something out of the Man City game, you know? Maybe some would feel like that about plenty of games. I don't care. We won the game, and that's all I really care about, but I do understand that we need to be better going forward. When you look at the game against Servette, we had the likes of Badiashile in there, the Sassy, Mudryk. All of these boys would be probably nowhere near a starting 11 if it was down to me and if everyone was fit and available. And not only that, when you look at the personnel we went with, most of these lot have not played any competitive football together, you know. Jorgensen, he had never played a competitive game for Chelsea. When you look along the back line, the Sassy and Badiashile either side of Tosin Adarabioyo, who played really well, but they have never played with him before. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and Renato Vega in the midfield. Obviously, Moises Caicedo has only been here a year, although I believe he's been good and he's gone under the radar. He was the one leading those boys in midfield, and they had never played together or in a competitive game with Caicedo, really, apart from a couple of minutes off the bench. And then when you look at the forward line, it's Pedro Neto's full debut. Mykhailo Mudryk, for the most part, looks like he hasn't played with any of these boys before. And you have Mark Yu up top. So despite me understanding that I do think that it was an underwhelming performance and better is yet to come, I also think that there's context to that performance. And I think that to go well over the top when Chelsea had just won a game 2-0 would just be stupid, really. We had a job to get done, and we got it done. As I say, better performances need to follow. But I did not see anything in that game, or enough in that game at least, to suggest to me that better performances won't follow when we've got our strongest 11 on the field and once these boys start to click. And winning games is everything. And for that reason, if you offered me a scrappy win away at the Molineux, I would definitely take it. But my God, it would do some good for me and for the Chelsea fan base to actually see some nice football in this game, wouldn't it? And that is why when you look at the starting 11 that I am going to go with, I have gone as strong as I possibly can. Oh, just quickly, while I've got you here, I need to ask you a question, by the way. You know the razor that you shave your beard with? You don't shave downstairs with that same razor, do you? You do, don't you, you filthy animal. Not joking, we all do it. But guess what, lads? The good news is here, because thanks to our friends at Manscaped, that is now a thing of the past, because they have come up with the ultimate package to keep both your beard and your balls in check without getting any wires, or should I say hairs, crossed. Let me introduce to you the Beard and Balls Bundle, which features the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. And before we dive deep into this bundle and the benefits that it can give you and some of your acquaintances, let's say, let me just tell you now, because I can tell you're already sold. If you click the link in my description or visit the Manscaped website, put in Joey Knight. That will get you 20% off and free shipping on your order. Starting off, we have the Lawnmower 5.0, and this bad boy is your new best friend. You can say goodbye to hours spent shaving because this trimmer gets it right the first time, cutting through the bushes as simple as possible. It's got two interchangeable blade heads that will give you both a precise and smooth finish, and if that weren't enough, it is waterproof, meaning it is time to start shaving while we're bathing. Then you've got the beard hedger, which is the exact tool that I use to keep this little goatee that I know you lot are very, very fond of looking as good as it does. It's got a titanium coated steel T-blade with 20 length options, meaning you're the boss. Style it how you want, and while we're at it, take as long as you want, because this bad boy has 60 minutes of runtime with an LED charge indicator, so you will never be caught with a dead battery. So there you go. And don't say that I never treat you. Hit the link in the description now or visit manscaped.com, and when you purchase your order, put in Joey Knight for 20% off and free shipping. Thank you very much to Manscaped. Let's get back into it. So this is the starting 11 that I would like to see start the game on screen now, and I'll talk you through some of the exclusions and the inclusions as we go on, but this is basically my lineup on paper. However, what we know is that Enzo Maresca heavily favours an inverted fullback into his system when we're attacking, when we have quite a bit of the ball, and therefore this graphic here is what it should end up looking like if we are able, and I know it's a big if, to assert some sort of dominance on Wolves in this game. Jorgensen over Sanchez. I know that there's been media stories that have now come out where Enzo Maresca has basically said that he plans to use Sanchez in the league and Jorgensen in the Europa League and the domestic cup competitions, but I do believe that Robert Sanchez probably will show Enzo Maresca why that's the first decision that I am quite feeling confident that Enzo Maresca's got wrong in his stint as Chelsea manager, because I saw enough from Jorgensen in that game against Servette to understand that I think Jorgensen's a better goalkeeper already than Robert Sanchez. By the way, I've said it time in, time out, I think Petrovic is better than both of them. However, I do think Jorgensen has the upper hand, and I do think that had it not been for Jorgensen, we may well have drawn that game against Servette. He had a lot of saves to make, he was called upon quite often, and he did a good job in doing it. Now, I wouldn't mind either Gusto or Cucurella inverting, but I do think that Wolves will make it a tough and intense test against us on Sunday, and therefore I think that Cucurella might be the better option. And then also with Caicedo in front of Malo Gusto, I think that he offers him enough protection to have Malo Gusto in that back three. Now, in my opinion, Tosin Adarabioyo was one of our best players in the week against Servette, and therefore I would not be against him starting this match. But I do also want to see this team start to settle now. And if that comes in the form of Tosin Adarabioyo getting 90 minutes through the week in the Conference League each week or every time we play, starting in the domestic cup competitions and being number one in line when it comes to someone stepping up into that defence, should one of them come out, drop form, end up injured, something like that, and we then give the chance to Colwell and Fofana to continue developing that partnership that I do think looked quite good against Man City, then I am willing to do so. Now, Enzo Fernandez not being in here, we need to speak about that as well, because he came on against Servette and he assisted with a goal, which shows that he does have that creativity, and it does definitely come better from the deeper lying spaces. And I do think that Enzo is important to this team. Realistically, this is why I always call it my preferred lineup and not a predicted lineup, because in a predicted lineup I'd have Sanchez starting and I'd have Enzo starting, but this is my lineup. This is not Enzo Maresca's YouTube channel, although he's welcome on any time. Listen, I think we're going to have to put an absolute shift in against Wolves. So then the question that I've got to ask myself is, does Enzo's creativity from that deep line role outweigh the engine and the combativeness and desire to win the ball back in the midfield that I feel like a free of Romeo Lavia, Caicedo and Cucurella give you? And ultimately, my answer to that question is no. I don't think the creativity of Enzo Fernandez and the ability to tip the game over does outweigh those three players that I've picked as the two midfielders and the inverted midfielder. And I've also spoke time in, time out again, how obviously I do think that Romeo Lavia, in some circumstances, can be just as creative as Enzo Fernandez. It might look different, it might come in a different form, but if the result's the same, which is that it leads to goals and assists, then I'm happy enough with it. And I think we've seen so much good from Romeo Lavia so far that I can't see him dropping his space, or his place in this team, I should say, when it comes to the Premier League games. Now, Enzo Maresca was quoted, and I'm paraphrasing here, as saying that Cole Palmer felt a bit of tightness on the back of his leg, or on his hamstring, his thigh, But he was assessed after the game and he was fine, and he's hopeful that he will play. So I am going under the assumption that Cole Palmer is fine. What do you guys think of Cole Palmer so far? Obviously, he almost doesn't look like he's up to scratch, and being that he played a lot of football over the summer and then didn't really feature in pre-season, you can forgive him for not being up to scratch. But sometimes, when the secret's out the bag, and when a player has the sort of debut season when they come to fruition like Cole Palmer does, sometimes you can then see it become harder for them in their second season. Teams start to base their game plan around that specific player, whereas before, they hadn't really given him a second thought. Players start to double up on him on the pitch, and I do think that you will see that happen to Cole Palmer this season. Also, I think you'll see Cole Palmer fouled a lot more this season, but I also think that Cole Palmer's talent and skill is enough to see him through and enough to make sure he continues to put up impressive numbers as he did last season. But one thing that he needs this season is those boys around him. I'm looking at Madueke, Nkunku, Pedro Neto, João Felix now he's through the door. He needs those boys around him to step up and alleviate some of the pressure from his shoulders, because it can't be another season where Cole Palmer on his own is tasked with carrying this Chelsea team through. Now, Pedro Neto over on the other side, he will be back at Molineux for the first time, and he didn't have to wait long to get back there either. It's interesting to see what sort of reception he gets. You know, will Wolves fans hold it against him for leaving the club? Obviously, listen, in the day and age we're in now, and where people, especially rival fans, are seeing Chelsea, maybe they might see it as a sideward step. I definitely don't. Pedro Neto has levelled up, and I think that he will impress in this game, because he's almost going to have the trick up his sleeve, isn't he, Pedro Neto? He knows this team a lot better than anyone else in our Chelsea side know this team. He trains with them week in, week out. The fullbacks that he will be coming up against if he starts on that wing, he will have dribbled past in training and know their strengths and weaknesses, as will they his. So it will be very, very interesting to see if he has got anything up his sleeve against Wolves. And much like we saw with Pedro Neto the first time he was actually available to start a game, I think we'll see João Felix off of the bench in this one. Now, it is no secret that Wolves are a very decent and very underrated side, especially last season. And this time out, I don't see it being all that different with Gary O'Neill's men, you know. I actually thought they were very, very impressive against Arsenal on the opening day, despite losing that game 2-0. What they did show me is the battle of the midfield they did really well in, and that was why we need to be 100% on it this game, 100% up for it, and we need to be committed, because if you're not, those boys in Wolves midfield will be able to overrun you. And I'll tell you what else they did against Arsenal. They capitalised a few times on Arsenal's attempting of playing it out from the back, and they forced mistakes out of Arsenal. And look, I personally think that if you're able to do that to Arsenal, you're going to be able to do it to Chelsea if, and it is a big if, we are not on form and at the races. But if we are at the races, I think there is easily enough talent in this side to beat a side like Wolves, who, by the way, we have to go all the way back to 2022 to the last time we even beat. So with all that being said, you know I'm predicting a win, but what sort of win am I predicting? Do I think that this will be the day that it clicks for Enzo Maresca's men? Obviously, 3 games into the season competitively, but if you include pre-season, he's had, what, 7 or 8 showings now with this Chelsea side? Or do I think it will be a tighter affair, where maybe the game ends up being settled and decided by a moment of individual brilliance from one player? I've got to be honest with you, I think it will be the latter. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and it won't happen overnight or in the space of a game where all of a sudden Chelsea look amazing. I do think there'll be a transitional period, but I do think that it will happen quicker than it did under Mauricio Pochettino. I think when we got to maybe the turn of the year or even November under Pochettino, we were about 12th in the table, something like that. People tell me if I'm wrong. I think we were about 12th in the table in November, something. And we obviously ended up finishing 6th. And if a couple of results had gone our way, we could have even finished higher. We went on a great run of form towards the end of the season, which only saw us lose once come the turn of the year. However, what I would say is this season, I don't see us being anywhere near as far off when it gets to November, December sort of time. I think that we will be in that sort of top 6, and then we'll see where we can push on from there. But I do think early on, as I say, there'll be a transition period, and there will be a period of time where maybe Chelsea aren't looking absolutely unreal. And if we aren't We have to be patient and sit through that, because if we can grind out games like we did in the week against Servette, you've got to sort of be happy enough to take those wins while we manage to adapt to this new system. So if it comes down to a little bit of individual brilliance that wins us this game, hopefully, I'd be happy enough with it. And if I had to pick who that bit of individual brilliance comes for, I'm sure a lot of you may be thinking Cole Palmer, or you may be underwhelmed by what you've seen from him so far. But I would back the man that popped up with a goal last time out when we were at Molineux, and that is Christopher Nkunku, the man that scored in midweek. And when I speak about the players that are ready to potentially step up and alleviate some of the pressure off of Cole Palmer, believe me, if Nkunku stays fit, he's first in line there. You know, he's going to be playing just ahead of that midfield for me, and because of that, I think that he will be a little bit deeper, a little bit further behind Jackson to create and assist with that creating ability that he holds, but also he is a man that I know can be the one that will pop up with a goal. So I do back us to win. What am I going for? I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. Although Wolves are good. Wolves are good. They're good at Molineux. I'm going to go 2-1 win because I want to see a couple of goals here. But no, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to go 2-1 win. I'm going to go 2-1 win to Chelsea. I'm going to think we're going to see a lot better from Enzo Maresca's men, and I really hope we do, because we need to get the ball rolling, not only in results, but in style of play now. Teams are going to come correct this season, you know. I know that every season it gets towards the end and we feel like no one even wants top four, but you look at obviously Aston Villa, they had a good season last time out. Newcastle, if they can keep away from the injuries that they had, I expect them to have a very good season. Who knows what will happen with Man United? I don't know. But what I do know is it is crucial that we get the points on the board starting on Sunday against Wolves. People, let me know your thoughts. Score predictions in the comment section below. What do you think of my starting lineup? What do you think of the exclusion in my lineup of Enzo Fernandez? And obviously, when we look at our bench now, we've got to remember, in modern day football, 5 substitutions, we can bring them on at any point in the game, and they need to be utilised because subs can change a match. And we look to our bench in this lineup I've got, and we'd have the likes of João Felix able to come on. We'd have the likes of Enzo Fernandez. We could bring the pressing monster who doesn't mind missing an open goal, Mark Gue, on off the bench, and we've got plenty more options than just that. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will see you all in the next one.